Oh, hello. Wasn't expecting anybody. Speaking of unexpected moments, it can happen at any time, anywhere. If you maintain an open enough mind, you can see some amazing things. Some amazing opportunities will just present themselves in the most odd of ways. For me, one of these moments was when I discovered aerial dance. I didn't even know it at the time. I'm on the plane flying home. It's a long journey. It's like 30 hours with layovers to get all the way from San Francisco to Manila. But I'm going back to see the family, see my fiance and kid. It's been a little while. And on the way over, they always got different videos you can watch. And one of the ones that this time was The Greatest Showman. I like musicals, so I was like, I'll give it a try. And I learned this is about the life of P.T. Barnum and the circus. Growing up in America, it's one of the things a lot of us get to do is go to circuses as a kid. So having been a few times is kind of an incomparable thing with the animals and the high wire trapeze and just so much going on all at once. It's just always like an amazing experience that I hope one day to share with my fiance. Her being Filipina and never having left that country was not really familiar with the circus. So we get on YouTube. We search around, we find some videos. But I also, while I'm showing her that, I find some documentation that says Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, after 150 years, have closed their doors. I'm blown away. I had no idea. This is one of those things you figure has been around forever and will always be around. But this option is no longer there for me to show her in person. There's still the Cirque du Soleil and such, but it's kind of a different animal, or lack of animals, you could say, in their performance. It's a beautiful art form in its own right, but it's not the circus. It's not what I generally think of when I think of it as a circus. Fast forward 1 year, downtown Portland, Oregon, Director's Park. I'm just walking by during the day, and there's these people just kind of like swinging by fabrics or something off of a high awning platform thing they have. And so, of course, like most other people, you just stop in and you get to enjoy a free show. And it turned out that this is my first introduction to aerial dance. I didn't even realize it was a thing. This turned out to be a children's group for a local outfit called AWOL, Aerial Without Limits. Yeah, I was pretty intrigued by this whole thing. I was just amazed by some of the skills these kids had and what they were able to do. And now that I had the name of the outfit and learned that it was kind of a non-profit thing, I'm even more intrigued. I do a lot of volunteering in support of different nonprofits. So I looked this up, and it turns out they have like scholarships and sliding scale rates and other stuff, so pretty much anybody can come in and do this, whether they can afford it or not. So that was in June of 2019. I left for a while. I came back to Portland in around Thanksgiving. This was about a month after my major life-changing whole thing occurred. So I'm just getting into like working out for the first time for like about a month. Before then, I was like 270 pounds. I can't reach my feet and low endurance. The only time I get any exercise is at work. And that's less than half of the year anyway. So I get to this AWOL place. I show up and I get a tour from the representative at the desk. And we're talking a bit. Yeah, everybody's just like really community oriented there. It's pretty cool. And they're like, hey, we have a free intro to aerial course tonight. You should come. For me, that's just a social anxiety. Even walking through the door to meet with this person was like already got me like barely able to contain myself from running away. So the idea of coming back in the same day and with more people there, I'm just whoa. But somehow I do it, and it turned out to be one of the best things I ever did. I got the introduction day of the fabric and the trapeze. Mostly was just little foot locks and ground stuff. And if you wanted to try to climb the silk, the fabric, you can. I didn't really have the grip strength. I just kept sliding down. Plus, obviously a lot heavier back then. A trapeze is just set right over your head, so it's not like if you're getting way up in the air doing scary things. You just, pull yourself up off the ground or bend your knees and do a little bit of rocking back and forth, or on the 2-point trapeze, or they have a single point for dance where you can spin in circles all day long. So it's kind of cool. There was a bunch of different people there, and it was only an hour-and-a-half class, so it's just like kind of a basic sampling of a couple things. Everybody took their turn. And unfortunately, a week and a half later, I started work at Amazon. So I'm working 60 hours a week at night, and not really able to do any entry-level classes, except for a yoga class. I've been meaning to get into yoga anyway, because it seemed like a good alternative to doing just straight gym and whatnot, and also maybe increase flexibility. But aerial yoga, I found, is just so much more fun. It's not just sitting on the mat and holding poses and doing stuff. I mean, you're actually like flipped upside down, like suspended. So you're not like holding yourself up like in a crazy handstand or something weird, or even like a down dog is you still have a lot of energy trying to hold yourself. Whereas with like a silk, it's just around your waist, and it's just, so much more fun in a lot of ways. You can do a lot more shapes. You can open it up and take a nap in it. It's just, yay. So this is what I did with December. After peak season ended around New Year's, I transitioned from yoga once a week to flexibility. Because flexibility is really kind of where I wanted to be to begin with. But at the time, it really wasn't able to fit that into my work schedule. And also in January, I began my first silk course. They had an entry level. That was tough. The first class or two out of that 4-week was still very challenging. Everybody was starting on a basic level, was okay. And then they go into like a lot of the climbs and other stuff. And I still have like no grip strength, and hands keep sliding. And it was just so frustrating. Patience is another thing I had a huge problem with back then. Pretty much during my whole life, I've quit everything I ever started with maybe a month or two after starting it. It's kind of phenomenal that this is probably about 14 months later, and I'm still with it. But back then, I made it through January in that class, and I was like, okay, if I don't have the grip strength for silk, maybe trapeze, where I'm just hanging. So for February, I went over to trapeze course. I tried that. I did find that a little bit easier, but it was still pretty tough. You use a lot of muscles in aerial you don't use anywhere else. I mean, how many times are you constantly trying to lift yourself up or do weird twisty things or back bending, and I work hard when I work in Alaska and other stuff, but I only use a small amount of muscle groups. It's a finite amount of movements, just very repetitive. That's why there's a lot of RSDs up there. You gotta be careful. But down here, in aerial, you're using like every muscle. The instructors are amazing though. They're generally like able to incorporate physical therapy, yoga, Pilates, I mean, fascia, uh, fascia, yeah, breakdown and stuff I wasn't even familiar with. So I began to learn all these things and all these chronic pains that I'd had, like chronic wrist pains and like tendonitis, fingers being numb for like up to 2 weeks when I get back from work before I had like full feeling back, like upper back pain that was just like over a decade, it was just there. You know, same with lower back pain, had been on and off for almost 3/4 of my life. I learned these different stretches and activities, how to make it almost all non-existent and still function at a higher level, allowing me to build strength in the muscles in ways that just shouldn't be a problem again. It becomes positively reinforcing after a while. Once the pain is away and the muscles are building up and the ability that you can do more stuff. I mean, I could go from not even being able to reach my feet. I had over 6-inch reach extension from like flexibility in like only 2.5 months. I was down 50 pounds and amazing more endurance. And then my positive mindset I gained out of it was just phenomenal. The takeaways have just been so beneficial. I mean, it's the determination and the patience. You just have to learn to focus and stay with something like this. The other huge one is consistent practice, which I told myself, obviously, I used COVID as an excuse because it kept closing and I didn't have an apparatus for a while or blah, blah, blah. I mean, a lot of things went to Zoom, but wasn't quite the same. I did still stick with it and I am back at it despite the on, off, so I have no regrets about that. And I don't really use that excuse as a crutch either. It just, things happen. You deal with it. You move on. You adapt. And then when you can, you go back to what it was. I've really kind of fallen in love with this art and really see myself proceeding and getting better and better at it. And in better physical condition than I think I ever have been, at a weight I haven't seen since I was 13 years old. And this was my introduction to aerial dance.